who kind of made a name for himself forever in the 2019 big game, here to take your questions. If you guys could let us know in the chat if you have questions, we'll get started. We'll go ahead and get started with, we'll mix it up a little bit. We'll start with Rusty Simmons today.
All right, Chase, I'll play along with Kyle's introduction. How has your life changed after changing your legacy with last year's big game?
I mean, you just kind of get noticed more by a bunch of Cal people. Definitely school that next week was a little bit interesting, walking around campus, but, nothing really, that exciting.
I will be more serious with you. Coach Shaw walked us through that last drive where you scored with, I don't know what it was, a minute and 16 seconds left. Do you think back about that? Do you watch it? Can you recite the plays on that drive?
Honestly, I haven't watched the game since, I've watched it once over quarantine when I was back home. I could probably recite a couple plays, definitely the last play. But, we have a new offense, so that offense is kind of in the back of my mind a little bit.
That sounds like a Chase Garbers answer. Play along with me a little bit. Walk me through the 16-yard run.
Okay. The ball was – we were trying to get Chris Brown the ball. We were expecting a man matchup. But it was him matched up with Curtis Robinson, I believe. Robinson did a good job getting underneath the route. So Chris, was eliminated from the option. And then the D-line did a pretty good job getting some push up in the pocket. Had to step up, make a move, saw an alley, kind of broke through a little arm tackle there. Saw space out to my left, started running. Nico was out there. He made a great block, just, had to pick a side really. Ultimately just, made a race to the pylon. And, we scored and ended up winning the game.
Good stuff. Thanks, Chase.
Okay, we'll go to Jeff Frotto with Cal Sports Report.
Chase, staying on that topic for just a second longer, I'm wondering how much did that game give you and the offense confidence when you were able to do that against a Stanford team that you kind of had your number for about half your life?
Yeah, it was definitely, a good confidence boost. We saw, I think from an offensive perspective, we knew we could execute a 2-minute drill. We did it earlier that year against Washington, but there wasn't really a huge crowd there due to the delay. So I think going to execute a 2-minute drill on that stage, on that big of a stage with, the whole stadium filled out, you're down, you're an away team, I think was huge for the offense.
Have you thought, you've had 2 games now with nobody in the stands, but have you thought about what it's going to be like to play a big game in an empty stadium? You finally get a home game and there's going to be nobody there.
Yeah, it's going to be very different. The games feel a little weird without any people in the stands, but we make it work. Hopefully there'll be some pretty good crowd noise for us being played on the speakers.
If I can ask you one more thing, changing gears, can you just talk about the young offensive linemen who were forced into playing last week, and what you thought of how they performed, and assuming that many of them are going to play again, what you expect out of them going forward in terms of what their next step is to maybe improve, if there's anything that needs to be done still?
Yeah, the whole offensive line played great. Some of them were thrown in there unexpectedly, and most of them, that was their first time playing college football. So I think, they answered the call very well. We only gave up 1 sack against Oregon State, which was great. Means that they were doing their job in the pass game. And, expecting them to play this week. I think just building off their first time playing and, what I've seen in practice so far these past couple of days is definitely, what I expect to see on Friday.
Could you tell, were they nervous at all when the game began?
No, I didn't sense any nerves from any of them. I think they're all pretty mellow guys. So I think they handled themselves pretty well.
It gives you some confidence going forward that they could play that well.
Yeah, no, I had belief in them even before the game. I knew what they were capable of, and they just showed it even more last Saturday. And working with them in practice this week, and I can't wait for Friday and games further.
Thanks, Jace.
Okay, we'll go to Trace Travers from Rivals.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions about the Oregon State game. First, how did you and Keikoa kind of get on the same page during that game, which you weren't able to accomplish during the UCLA game?
Yeah, well, I think Keikoa and I have always had a certain chemistry, even going back to last year. When he was healthy, those couple games we had together kind of showed what we can do when he's out there. And I think just overall the offense, took a huge step from UCLA to Oregon State. First game against UCLA, haven't played in over a year, against somebody else. We didn't have a D line, so the offensive line was basically blocking nobody for about 2 weeks. So I think overall just the offensive jump from week 1 to week 2 is huge. And we expect to build on that, week in and week out. And, Koa is a huge piece in our offense.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed during the Oregon State game is you guys were throwing to the left side of the field a lot. Was that a particular focus with Oregon State, or how did that work?
It was more so a personnel matchup, with their secondary. We knew they had a big 6'4" corner on one side of the field. You don't really want to throw, deep balls where he can go up and make a play on it. So, we took advantage of the smaller corner, which would be the left side of the field.
Gotcha. And with Stanford, when we talked to Wilcox earlier, he mentioned they have some defensive backs with cover skills. What have you seen from them as they've played a couple games so far?
Well, I mean, with Stanford, they're going to be big and talented. And I could say that for just about everyone on their defense. They always get the big guys coming out of high school when they're recruiting. So they're pretty skilled, on all levels, secondary, linebackers, and on the front four. So we know going in that it's going to be a dogfight pretty much in the trenches, with their size, and in the back end with their speed. So we're excited for the challenge.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chase.
Okay, we'll go to Jim McGill with Bear Insider.
Chase, you guys had to overcome a lot in the game this last weekend with having so many starters out, and then having Mike go down too. That you're still in the game right at the end, despite that, and despite some really big plays that went against you. The kick returns called back, and the punt block, and the 75-yard run up the gut to start the game. I mean, those aren't really characteristic of a Cal team. How do you talk about limiting those types of plays? And you feel like you guys are progressing in your ability to overcome your limited availability with some of your guys?
Yeah, well, some of those plays last week were definitely unlucky on our side. And sooner or later the ball will roll towards us, and we'll get some of those lucky plays. But most of them, just fundamental, bunch of technique we got to clean up. I think just as the season goes on, more of those plays will be on our side, and maybe we won't get a couple kicks called back or a block punt or stuff, unlucky stuff like that. But despite having a bunch of guys out, we had a chance to win at the end, and unfortunately it didn't roll our way. But we're working towards what our goal is and to win every game. So we just got to dial it in practice.
In reviewing the film, did some of those return penalties look a little questionable, like they did maybe on Saturday?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a coach, so I don't get fined for talking about the refs, but yeah, those are definitely some questionable calls.
Yeah, they didn't look like they were going to impact the return.
Yeah, I mean, but it is what it is. Sometimes stuff doesn't go your way and you got to deal with it. But definitely should have been 2 touchdowns for us on the special teams.
Yeah. You and Nico have had a good bond and chemistry from the beginning, but it seems like there's a little bit of slowness getting that chemistry back again this season. Is that something you guys are working extra hard on, to have him be another weapon in your offense right now?
Yeah, I mean, Nico's a huge weapon. He didn't really get too many touches these past 2 games, so we're obviously working to get him the ball more because he is an explosive player. He was a huge playmaker for us last year, and he still is right now. Some of that last game was due to, he had 2 big kick returns. He was a little tired. So, you don't want to overuse your players, especially when you got so many weapons on offense. But we're definitely looking to get him the ball more, putting him in space and seeing what he could do.
Last question. It seemed like you were rolling right a lot last week. Was that by design?
No. I mean, some of them were scrambles, just pure, pocket breakdown, find the lane to escape. Some was designed, some was called with, our play action boot game. But, some of it was play call, some of it was just on the fly.
Thanks.
Okay, Rusty Simmons from the Chronicle.
Chase, you already talked a little bit about Stanford's defense and how they always get big athletic players. Just wondering if you've seen their first 2 games and any immediate thoughts that you have on their defense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously they're talented. I think, Curtis Robinson is a pretty good linebacker. They got some pretty big guys up front that are pretty hard to move. They kind of got unlucky in their first 2 games, but, they were there. You could definitely feel their presence on the tape. So I think, just focusing on, our run game. I think our pass game came along pretty well last game. So just building on that is definitely, what we got to focus on going into Stanford.
And I kind of brushed over it in the first question, but you mentioned that you are running a new offense from what we saw last year. How much more comfortable are you in, I guess we call this week 3 now?
Yeah, I mean, just week in and week out, every week we play, I get more and more comfortable. We did not have a traditional spring ball, didn't have a traditional fall camp, didn't have a traditional summer where you could really, dial in and learn the offense as you normally would. So definitely the more you play, the more reps you get. Running each play, the more comfortable you get. And, that'll just build week in and week out.
And then I'll bug you with one more while you're doing this. I'm watching Matthew Cindric and some of your other teammates on this Q&A with the rally committee. Does this feel like big week to you, even though so much of this is now virtual and there aren't bonfires and rallies and all that?
It definitely feels a little different, having school online and not being able to see all the stuff down at Sproul Hall is definitely a little different, but it definitely feels like it. We know, we have the axe now, and we're not going to let that go. We got Stanford on Friday, so the atmosphere is there on the football side. It's just, we're missing it, because we're not really, in classes in person.
Thanks, Chase.
Jeff Rado from Cal Sports Report.
Yeah, Chase, since you had a chance to watch tape of last week's game, how would you grade the way you played it? It seemed like you upped your game quite a bit. Were you happy with it? What were you most pleased with? What do you think you need to do better? And what's your confidence level right now?
Well, I'll tell you this. Coming out of the game on the bus back to the airport, I definitely thought, I didn't play as well. Definitely could have played better. Definitely some throws I wish I had back. Definitely some plays I wish I had back. But watching the tape on Sunday, graded out at a 92%. So that's pretty good. But I'm always going to be my hardest critic. I always think I could do better. Obviously, the game wasn't perfect. We didn't win. But it doesn't matter what your grade was if you don't win. So kind of just building on, what was successful last week and just working on what didn't work.
And your confidence level right now?
I'm very confident, in my game and in the offense for sure. I think just the jump from week 1 to week 2 is huge in terms of that as a player and in the system. So just building on that, from week 2 to week 3.
Thanks, Chase.
Okay, we'll go back to Trace Travers from Rivals.
Yeah, you said 92%. What do you mean by that?
Just footwork. We kind of break it down by footwork, your progression of the play, how the play was and accuracy. So all those dialed in. Coach Musgrave, has a little grading system. So grading each play.
Thank you.